this is Matt O'Leary, and this is the first day of spring here in very snowy Minnesota. I'm a counselor at a school, and I think we had 5 or 6 snow days this year. And it's not like a New York snow day. I'm not talking like a thin dusting. I'm talking like overnight snow, 5 or 6 inches at least. It can't be the day before because then the plows are just going to pick it up. And this week's big project has been re-listening and compiling my top 5 favorite LITE and Noodly modern math rock albums. So this is a beginner's guide to modern math rock. Genre labels like math rock are necessarily limiting and exclusive. By labeling something specifically as math rock, you're saying that that sound, that band, whatever it is math rock, and other things are not. And music fans are generally pretty open-minded people, I guess you could say. They're people who don't really love rigid definitions and borders. But these overly simplistic labels that sometimes overgeneralize a little bit are adaptive and useful ways to communicate about music. And without them, we'd just get lost in the endless specificity and complexity of musical expression. It's much easier to understand if I just say Toe is a math rock band rather than, they're a DIY experimental band with some clean Telecaster guitar tones, and that one song with the alternating bars of 5 and the 9. But trust me, I know that the term math rock means many different things to many different people. You might think of 70s prog bands, you might think of some 80s hardcore punk, you might think 90s alternative, maybe Midwest emo, or maybe you just think weird time signatures and instrumental and overly intellectual and hard to understand music with guitars. And maybe I'll get to some more later, but this video is going to focus on modern stuff from the past 15 years or so, nothing 90s here. And it also focuses on the more lighthearted, the jangly, the noodly side of math rock. And finally, I'm going to focus on my personal favorite albums rather than the ones I just feel are classic or essential, in a more objective cultural landscape of the genre sort of way. And I feel like that will just be a little more fresh and new and exciting rather than if I just snagged a list off of Fecking Bahamas or something. These are probably not the albums you're going to find if you just search top 10 math rock albums on Google. So without further ado, let's get into some albums here. I wonder how much time's been wasted just saying without much further ado. First up, from 2009, it's the band Rooftops with their album A Forest to Polarity. First thing to know about this album is just how fast it moves. You get this 30-second little ambient intro track, and then you get a second intro track that's about a minute long. It's just really hard-hitting. The suite of songs opening this album flow seamlessly into each other and just feature some of the most instantaneous and gripping grooves. The album just tosses you like a beanbag across the room from groove to groove, almost always with this delicate finger-picked guitar underneath it all. Year as Lift is a highlight for me, with its playful tapping and horns thrown in there to a really sobering effect. There's definitely a post-rock mood to this thing. It's not always just a erratic, chaotic tangle of chords and licks. Even on the heavier moments when the drummer's splashing away on the crash cymbal and the distortions are ramping up, like on the song Tear As I Fly, there's still a lightheartedness to the beats. It never takes very long to get back to something airy and bouncy. It's also quintessentially math rock to do something so meaningless and goofy with your song titles. If you'll notice, the song titles, they're all just rearrangements of the letters from the album title, A Forest to Polarity. Let's see, what do we got here? A Stray Life, Raft Easily, See Frailty, A Layer Fits, Leafy Stare. Oh man, this next album gonna be a little controversial, I think. We got, mostly because it's not an album that the band made in their heyday, and it's really not considered up to the level of their 2 first albums, which are kind of math rock classics. And that's the 3rd full-length album, Hear You, from Toe. The Japanese math rock scene is huge. We got bands like Trico and LITE, which will come up later in this video. We got Nuito and Toe and but Toe has to top the list as far as classic math rock bands go. Their first 2 albums, like I said, are considered classics of the genre, For Long Tomorrow, and then the other one, one of the best album names, a book about my idle plot on a vague anxiety. But Hear You was a definite departure from the sound of those first two albums, which was a very, very consistent math rock sound into a much more diverse set of tracks. As a listening experience, Hear You really keeps you at the edge of your seat with new instruments and moods and ideas just coming and going at a quick clip. You've got the hushed staccato pop of Commit Ballad or the stripped down piano balladry of Song Silly. One of my favorite moments is the track Boyo, which is a lush acoustic guitar led track with all these beautiful interweaving melodies. Kashikura Takashi on the drums is unquestionably the band's leader, and he's probably the most impressive instrumentalist, and he really shows off his technicality on the song My Little Wish. Toe's always really gone for a certain poignancy in their music through minimalism. While the playing is very technically proficient, all the guitar lines and all the lead melodies are really stripped to their bare essentials and played with their signature clean tones. Toe are pioneers of the modern math rock sound, and this album is their most emotionally resonant, I think. Next up is an album that's described by the artist as 10 happy songs about sadness. It's Deadstar with In Between Dreams. Deadstar is a one-man project from Bangalore, India, and his album Baby Teeth from 2017 ended on my top albums of the year list from that year. That one went in an even smoother and more lush direction, but In Between Dreams features a much more classic, twinkly guitar sort of sound. Like the opener Flower Kid, what I love about Deadstar is just the complete lack of pretentiousness. Even on a track with these frenzied time shifts and tapping, he manages to keep the mood from sounding too chaotic or aggressive. This is really exemplified on probably the grooviest track, one that features a ton of organ and guitar arpeggios. It's a dope trailer is no place for a kitty. That is so true. There are just so many guitar tones on the first 4 tracks of this album even. He's got a mastered sense of tone. The drums are obviously digitized on a lot of the album, and that's something he'd come to lean on even more later, but it's still just ultra smooth and like I said, very cinematic, like on Still Broken. Playing into that is the album's lavish use of pads and droning synths. The second half dives deep into this sound at and after the song Tista, abandoning the tapping for an atmospheric, post-rock, and an ambient-inspired sound. The song's Blue Caribou or downer ending features some cacophonous, shimmering chords like some later Mogwai album or like the band Caspian. Yeah, it's very Caspian. Deadstar is a criminally underrated artist who does atmosphere in electronic math rock better than anyone. There are lots of field recordings on this album too, if you're into that. Next up is another Japanese band that also infuses electronics and post-rock elements. Man, I really saved 2 amazing albums for last here. It's LITE, that is LITE, with 2013's Installation. This is hands down the most experimental and eclectic pick, ranging from the bleep bloops and trendy R&B vocal sample on Between Us to the very Battles-esque fuzzy riff on Fog Up. Installation remains tied to the core sounds of Japanese math rock, you know, those staccato, clean riffs, but it's also the most diverse math rock album I've ever heard, just mixing so many surprising and unexpected sounds into this thing. They do atmosphere, but they're also these incredibly catchy and just earworm riffs like on Echolocation or Bond or Hunger. I love the layering of harmonies on Bond, which lead into this furious drumming that sounds like a cat fight, or that dainty piano on Echolocation, which is a little taste of something from their contemporaries from Japan, Mouse on the Keys. The song Subaru is a close relative of Deadstar sound, but I think my favorite moment is on Alter Ego with those kind of poppy sirens that sound like an emergency alarm at a nuclear plant. It's such a weird sound to throw in there, but it just works perfectly. This is verging on a perfect album for me. It's one that is probably one of my personal favorites in my record collection, and also one that just shows how versatile this style of instrumental music can be. Clear with some black smoke in there. Last on this Intro to Math Rock list is a band that served as the gateway for many a music fan into the world of math. It's the best modern math rock album in my opinion, and that is Grow by Chon. Melodically, this is a record that holds your attention from start to finish, and there's almost no lull across the whole thing, which is a rare feat for an instrumental album. Eric Hansel and Mario Camarena's guitar work is the star of the show here. They lead almost every song with a very memorable, very angular riff. One of the best riffs is on the song Book, which really typifies this relaxed, beach vibe that Chon kind of perfected on their next album, Homie. They perform and groove together with such ease that the overall effect is soothing and almost tranquilizing. How in the world Mario pulls off that solo after the chorus of Can't Wait and still manages to maintain the easy breeziness of that track I'm just not going to understand. And that song Can't Wait is one of two amazing vocal tracks on the album. Vocals are used very sparingly in math rock, usually as a group chant or just another instrument in the mix. But on Can't Wait or Echo, there's actually a vocal lead that's mixed as a vocal lead, and it doesn't cramp their style in the least. Some of those two vocals are sung in the most appropriate way for this style of music, and they add themes of self-exploration, self-reflection, and longing. The song Not is another highlight for me, which came from an earlier EP of the band's, and it's one that goes from these frantic, sweeping sections to these slower, dreamy sections with waves of reverb. Chon definitely strikes that sweet spot between songwriting and soundwriting, between writing a mood, writing a vibe, and composing in interesting and unique and progressive ways. It's some of the best guitar work you're likely to hear too, just period. Treat yourself with some Chon. That's it, and that's all, folks. We have 5 stellar, modern, light and noodly math rock records that'll blow your ever-loving mind. I'll be back at some point with part 2, which will go deeper into the heavier and punkier side of math rock. In the meantime, get those calculators out and go nuts. Leave a comment below with some of your favorite math rock albums, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And as always, thank you so much for watching.